There are so many incredible moments in Marvel canon. But have I told you about the time that Thor defeated Klaw? Hello everybody, and welcome to another installment of my infinitely long series where I play Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games, and prove that my favorite hero, Thor, is capable of technically defeating every villain in the game. I wanted to start this series out by pitting Thor against the villains from the core set, Rhino, Klaw, and Ultron, to prove that he has what it takes. I was very wrong. There were a lot of complications. In this encounter, we'll be working to investigate an underground weapons network headed up by Ulysses Klaw. But unfortunately, hired thugs, the Masters of Evil, are backing him up, and that means that Klaw has proven to be a problem child for our fair God of Thunder. This wasn't necessarily a surprise. I think that Klaw is a wonderfully crafted scenario. It's just one that you can't easily math out, since Klaw's activations are more dynamic than the encounters that bookend him. My journey to defeat Klaw started with a Thor Justice deck. Seeing as we start out with a side scheme already in play, I knew that threat management was going to be a factor in this encounter. Because of this, I suspected that I was going to be playing a much longer game than an aggressive deck was really capable of doing, even against a villain that has multiple stages to work through. The glaring issue with these longer games is it takes you longer to lose. So several of my games would go on for almost half an hour before I would realize that I had somehow miscalculated and put myself in a position where I had no way to dig myself out of a minion swarm or a giant pile of threat. In my first attempt, I had done a pretty remarkable job of maintaining the threat, but a bad boost effect off of Klaw's activation left me with more damage than I was ready to take on, putting me at 2 hit points before the encounter card was the nail in the coffin, Klaw's Vengeance, which isn't necessarily a death sentence, but it was at the time. My second attempt felt like it was going somewhere. Yeah, I went to a pretty low life total, but there were no minions. And then Klaw got an extra activation, and that did me in. My biggest hurdle was that I was always getting swarmed by minions. Even if I cleared all of them out, any encounter card was leading to an attack activation that was taking me from a healthy life total down to 0. And attempt number 4. I hit Shadows of the Past, something that is detrimental to Thor, constantly. And even after stabilizing, the main scheme was accelerating so quickly that for the first time in all of my attempts, Klaw schemed to victory. This was the point when I realized that for my own sanity, I should probably switch up what aspect I was playing in an attempt to try to come at this problem from a different angle. I know that I said that an aggressive deck may not be the best course of action for what is more than likely going to be a very long game. But as I began to reflect back on just how often I was losing to an overwhelming swarm of minions, I wanted to try to counteract that in some way. Counteracting it so much, in fact, that I'm switching my hero to Valkyrie. Yeah, you thought I named this series Asgard vs. the Universe to get around copyright issues, and while that may be true, I also wanted to leave the door open in case Valkyrie ever needed to sub in. And I think things have gone awry, so we're going to sub her in. Valkyrie is a very different hero to Thor. Her gimmick is that she has the Death Glow, an attachment that she can put onto enemies, and then she gets different benefits based on what identity-specific weapons she has. And in the event that she defeats that enemy, she readies right back up. In some respects, she's a little bit clunky, but I love an underdog. Right off the bat, Valkyrie has a very strong first turn. Not only taking out the minion, but bringing Klaw all the way down to 4 from a starting life total of 12. And as we progress into the second stage of Klaw, I have the threat pretty well managed with one of Valkyrie's weapons on hand, meaning that I'm in a pretty good position. But jumping ahead, even with a very well-established board, I am clearly in over my head. I had fallen into the second main scheme and was trying to sort out what would be the best time to take out that extra 10 health via the Immortal Klaw. And of course, if you're paying close enough attention to the board state, it's obvious that I had miscalculated how quickly the threat was going to accumulate due to the acceleration icon on the side scheme. Ultimately, Klaw schemed out on me. I had to go through several trials and tribulations just trying to understand the tempo of this deck so that I knew how I was going to best handle the minions and the accumulation of threat. Then I hit the first Shadows of the Past with Valkyrie. Asgardians really don't have it easy when it comes to their nemeses. Both Loki and Enchantress have the ability to completely dismantle whatever momentum the respective heroes have already garnered. And in a solo game, Seduced can mean resetting your game pretty much on the spot. And none of that really matters in this case, because even before factoring in Klaw's scheming, there is enough threat to end the game right there and then. The frustrating thing that keeps happening is that no matter how hard I try, Klaw keeps scheming out, or I get overrun by minions. Maybe I'm playing Valkyrie wrong. No, that can't be. Then on my next attempt, I got a Shadows of the Past on turn 1. But don't worry, I overcame that eventually because Valkyrie's just that good. Unfortunately, I did not calculate the fact that the rest of the game was progressing around the fight that me and Enchantress were having, and I once again lost. Valkyrie, I was rooting for you, but I think it's time for us to refocus. We're going back to Thor. At this point, I go back to Thor Justice, because I never learn. My next attempt was going fine, but unfortunately it was undercut by a series of poor events. While I was in Alter Ego, the first scheme completed during the first step of the villain phase, meaning that I would be discarding off the top of the deck until I found a minion. Luckily, I ended up with just an armored guard. Then Klaw schemes for a total of 4, and one more scheme is added from Whirlwind. And my encounter card is Masters of Mayhem, resulting in me getting one more large minion into play. My turn consists of recovering and then changing to my hero form and playing Monica Chang. At this point, thwarting the Immortal Klaw seems like a bad call because once I put Klaw into stage 2, he's just going to get it back. So I decide that I should probably thwart away the other side scheme. When Klaw's turn comes around, he attacks me for 5. At this point, I know that I'm probably in the closing moments of this attempt. I'm barely hanging on when it comes to threat, and after letting Monica take some damage, I'm left having to take undefended attacks as I can't afford to be exhausted. I bumble through the encounter cards, and on my turn, I try my best to use Defender of the Nine Realms in hopes of digging for a lightning strike and clearing the board. After my second Defender of the Nine Realms, I realize that no matter how much I do, the combined scheming of the villain's team is going to result in a loss, so I have to pack it up. Then came my final game. I guess at this point it's probably a good time to summarize everything we're going up against in this particular encounter. Klaw is ransacking a shield base with the help of the Masters of Evil. Right off the bat, we have to get ahead of the side scheme defense network, which introduces the crisis icon to the scenario, meaning that we can't thwart the main scheme while it's in play. Lastly, we have to discard the top of the encounter deck until we find a minion, which engages us. My opening hand is Defender of the Nine Realms, Genius, Chance Encounter, Hammer Throw, and God of Thunder. After some consideration, I elect to mulligan Hammer Throw and Chance Encounter, and draw into Clear the Area and Mjolnir. That's fine. After swapping to my hero form, I play Defender of the Nine Realms and find a weapons runner, clearing out the defense network and drawing into Godlike Stamina and Ironheart. Then I use Genius to pay for God of Thunder and pay for Ironheart with Clear the Area and Godlike Stamina. Then I draw into another Godlike Stamina, which I use to pay for Mjolnir. At this point, I use Ironheart to remove the tough status and have Thor take out the armed guard. At the end of the player phase, I draw into Defender of the Nine Realms, Limitless Stamina, Lightning Strike, and Hammer Throw. I elect to take the damage from Klaw's attack, and luckily only take 2 damage despite Klaw's doubled up boost ability, ultimately bringing me down to 11 hit points after the minion attack. My encounter card is Weapons Runner, which surges into Masters of Mayhem, and I have to seek out Melter. On my turn, I play Defender of the Nine Realms in an effort to draw more energy resources for Lightning Strike. I get another Armored Guard, drawing into Strength and Unshakable. So I try to make the best of the situation and just hit the entire villain board for 4 damage, which leaves just Klaw and Melter. After some thought, I attack Klaw down to 5, and I ready back up with Limitless Stamina and attack Klaw down to 2, and have Ironheart get Melter off the board. Once I thought it through, I realized that Melter was going to defeat Ironheart next turn anyway, since his trigger mandates that he must be blocked by an ally. So I figured I'd exercise some free will. I ready up and draw into Thor's Helmet, Wiccan, and Surveillance Team. I luck out and Klaw's attack doesn't deal any damage, but the encounter card is Sound Manipulation, so I go down to 9 and Klaw heals back up to 4. I start on my turn and play Thor's Helmet to buy me more time with that 5 extra life. Then I use Strength to play out Wiccan and thwart down the main scheme. And hey, I got off an extra point of damage, so Klaw is at 3. I use Thor to defeat him and move on to stage 2 of Klaw. After seeking out the Immortal Klaw and setting the villain to 28 life points, I ready up and draw into Lady Sif, one way or another, clear the area, and Lightning Strike. I feel really good about where I am in the game right now. Klaw attacks me, and the boost cards are both Masters of Evil characters, resulting in Thor taking 2 damage and discarding a card. This takes me down to 12 hit points, and the encounter card is Sonic Boom, exhausting Thor. On my turn, I play Clear the Area on the main scheme, drawing into Counterintelligence. Then I try my luck with One Way or Another, grabbing Illegal Arms Factory. This draws me into God of Thunder, Quinn Carrier, and Under Surveillance. I then discard my hand, allowing me to play God of Thunder and Under Surveillance on the main scheme. I am not losing the game to scheming. Not again. I ready up, drawing into Quasar, Asgard, Surveillance Team, and Clear the Area, then prepare for an undefended attack. Klaw's boost cards result in 3 damage, and Klaw getting a tough status card. Then the encounter cards are Masters of Mayhem, resulting in me getting Melter, and Klaw gets the attachment Solid Sound Body, giving him Retaliate. Because another minion engaged with me, I draw into Defender of the Nine Realms and Hammer Throw. After some deliberation, I elect to play Quasar and thwart down the scheme some. Then I play Defender of the Nine Realms, clearing the Illegal Arms Factory and getting an acceleration token due to discarding through the entirety of the encounter deck. Okay, so I don't place the acceleration token just yet, but we get there. First, I have to play Clear the Area, removing all the threat from the Immortal Klaw. This draws me into Machine Man, and I thwart with Wiccan, who unfortunately whiffs on the encounter card damage. Then Quasar attacks Melter, and Thor defeats him. Then it's time to ready up, and I decide to discard Machine Man because I just don't know if they're going to do me any good in the moment. I draw into One Way or Another, Monica Chang, and Limitless Stamina, and finally add the acceleration token as I was going through the first step of the villain phase. I decide to block with Wiccan, and my encounter card is Klaw's Vengeance. So I decide to take that attack directly. Luckily, that attack was only for 3, but it also puts Weapon Runner into play off of their boost ability. At that point, the draw trigger causes me to shuffle my deck, getting a face-down encounter card. But I add Deft Focus and Chance Encounter to my hand. On my turn, I discard Limitless Stamina, Deft Focus, and Chance Encounter to play Monica Chang. Find Surveillance Team and shuffle up. I play One Way or Another to get Defense Network, and then draw into Godlike Stamina, Counterintelligence, and Lightning Strike. I break the Tough with Monica, then Hammer Throw through the Weapons Runner and smash Klaw down to 12 hit points, as I have now caught up with clearing the Immortal Klaw from moments ago. This is a complicated game with far too many things going on sometimes. I play Mjolnir and thwart Defense Network. I attack Klaw with Quasar, taking the villain down to 10 hit points, and Retaliate takes out Quasar. Thor attacks for 3 more, and I ready back up, drawing Machine Man, Lady Sif, One Way or Another, and Defender of the Nine Realms. Monica defends against an attack for 3 from Klaw. My first encounter card is Klaw's Vengeance, resulting in an attack for 4. The main scheme goes up to 6 out of 10 threat, and my second encounter card is Masters of Evil. I discard the encounter deck and find Whirlwind, drawing me into Lightning Strike and Asgard. I attack Klaw down to 4 hit points and play Lady Sif, who readies Thor, attacks Klaw, and I have Thor finish the battle before Retaliate can trigger, ultimately defeating Klaw. Alright, so what can we take away from this entire experience? I go back to what I said before. I think that Klaw is a wonderfully crafted scenario. I think it is completely worthy of being in the core set. And the biggest takeaway that I would have about Klaw is that as a new player, and even as an experienced player, using Klaw as a deck to test out something that you've built, I would really say that the best skill you can hone is just trying to know when is a good time to really put your foot down on the gas and just prioritize Klaw over everything else. The first time I beat Klaw, it was really a level up moment to say, like, hey, you are prioritizing Tiger Shark too much. Just put that 7 or 8 damage that you would have been putting into him onto Klaw, and this could be over any time now. And I think that at the end of the day, that is the big thing that I would take away from all of this. Doesn't matter what the deck I used was, doesn't matter what lessons I really learned, other than just to know that there is a time and place to try to build up, and there's a time and place to just end the scenario. And if you look back at the gameplay, it only took like 4 or 5 turns anyway, but I probably could have cut a turn off if I had just been a little bit more strategically minded. This episode was brought to you by Patreon supporters like Mystery Person. Patreon says that you're following me and that you are supporting me, but I don't know who you are, but I thank you for your support. Also, I want to say that in the last episode, I thanked a few people, but the one person I didn't thank was Ryan from Snicktoons podcast. He gave me the perspective of someone who's never played the game, who have only described the game to, and you should go listen to his podcast. He has covered every episode of the X-Men the Animated Series over the course of like 3 years, and he just completed everything a couple months ago at time of filming. Next time we'll be taking on Ultron. That might be a little bit further out just because I don't see that being a week turnaround as of right now. Either way, thank you for making it to the end of the video, and I will see you next time.